If you're able to rise, please do so for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening. At this time, we will open up the first hearing and privilege of the floor. If anybody wishes to address the board, please just state your name and address and adhere to the Board of Education's 5-minute policy. All right, we will close the first hearing and privilege of the floor and remind everybody that we will have one towards the end. And at this time, we have our first presentation of the evening. So we will turn this over on ParentSquare. And I will move out of the way.
A little technical difficulty. There it goes. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Sylvie Joseph. I'm the Director of Technology, and with me is Julia.
Hi, I do public relations for the school. I'm Julia Lokendy.
So I just want to start by thanking the board, Susan, Rick, Drew, for inviting us up here so we can give you guys an overview of ParentSquare, which is our new communication platform. So what is ParentSquare? It is a unified communication tool. So if you all remember, we used Blackboard previously to communicate events, school happenings, school closures, snow days, things of that nature. So this essentially replaces Blackboard. What does that mean, unified communication tool? So it kind of consolidates everything that we're typically used to, email, text, phone calls, into this massive platform that has much more features than Blackboard did. It's a two-way communication system, whereas Blackboard was kind of one-way. So we send out a message from the district. You would get a phone call, text, or email with whatever the communication was from the district. With ParentSquare, there's a little bit more of a two-way street where parents, faculty, staff, community members, to a certain extent, can now interact with those messages and communications that we're sending out. Why did it come about? So this is actually something ParentSquare actually came about probably 10 to 12 years ago, and it was created by a parent in California because they were just overwhelmed by the disparate methods of communication that schools typically use on a day-to-day basis, from paper to email to phone calls, text messages from platforms like Blackboard. So the parent that created this thought of it as, hey, here's an opportunity for me to kind of help my community, help my school, and kind of consolidate everything into one platform. So, and the square in ParentSquare kind of goes back to, you know, historically speaking, and I don't know how old, I'm not going to say how old I am or how old this idea of a town square is. That's kind of like the idea behind ParentSquare. Back in whenever, the olden days, or what you want to call it, people went to the town square. That was your central place to get all your information. So that's the idea behind ParentSquare. You have this one location that you get all of your communication, all of your happenings related to your school and your child's school. Get all that information in one place. How does it work? So the meat of the information that comes into ParentSquare comes from our student information system, or better known as PowerSchool. So all of the contact information that we have for our students, the parent information, email, phone numbers, all of that comes into ParentSquare, including classes, teacher schedules, rosters for those classes, so that when a teacher opens up ParentSquare, they've got their class roster and they can communicate with that roster without having to go in and create their own roster, manually entering all this contact information or finding the emails from PowerSchool and then, launching an email or what have you to communicate with each of these parents in their class. What can it do? So we talked about this just briefly. Mass and emergency communication. Again, your typical communication that school districts typically send out to, notify about school closures, early dismissal, snow days, whatnot. That can be done in one of three ways. Email, again, typical. Phone, typical, and text message. So nothing really new or earth-shattering there from what Blackboard did. So this is that school-to-home communication that I was mentioning, two-way communication. So not just from the district level that Julia would send out in terms of a school closing and whatnot, but now the building principals can communicate to their entire building from the ParentSquare medium. They can go down to a grade level, so if Mr. Bednarik wants to send a message to just the 9th graders, he can do that. If John wants to send, or Mr. Genetti wants to send a message to just the 3rd graders, he can do that. Even down to the classroom level. So Mr. Bednarik can send a message just to one of his 3rd grade classes. Mr. Bednarik can send a class or a message or post to just the Algebra 1 class. And all of that is without having to do any sort of interaction on his part with the system because it's all coming from PowerSchool. That class roster comes in, all the parent contact information comes in as long as it's populated properly in PowerSchool, and they're off and running. Attendance notifications. This is something that, kind of going back to the disparate methods of communication, we had another platform that we used along with Blackboard, I think, over the last couple of years. School Messenger, I think, was what it was called for sending out attendance notifications. So we had Blackboard for sending out mass communications, school closures, whatever, and then attendance notifications were coming from School Messenger, I believe. So now we've all consolidated that into one platform. Attendance notifications are going out through ParentSquare. So the phone call goes out if your child is absent or late or what have you. But the nice piece about this is, and that both Mr. Bednarik and Mr. Genetti have seen this in action, is when those attendance notifications and calls go out, the parent can actually respond to that and send in that excuse note, or my child was absent because he had a doctor's appointment, or our car broke down and we couldn't get to school on time and that's why he was late. So the attendance folks, the principal, anybody that's designated will receive those attendance notifications back via email and also see the report within ParentSquare. So they'll get an email notification with the excuse. What the buildings are doing at this point is taking that printout of the email and then attaching that to the attendance record, and then the attendance person would make the change or correction within PowerSchool. Viewing district and school calendars. So again, we've got this information, I think, in a number of locations. It's on the district website, but instead of going to the district website, they can go right into the app or on the portal on a PC. Julia has taken all of our district Google calendars for each building as well as the district and populated that or connected it into ParentSquare. So in the interface, when you're on the main page of ParentSquare, on the right-hand side, there will be a calendar that has all of the events for any specific building, but as well as the district as a whole. So again, that one-stop shop, that town square idea of having all your information at your fingertips on one screen. Reporting on communications. So I think Blackboard had this feature or functionality to a certain extent, but at this point now, when the building principals or any of their designees are sending out a message or a post, they have the ability to, in an instant, once that message goes out, look at the reporting and statistics on the message. Who's getting the message? How many people have read it? How many people have seen it? How many people have looked at it? How many phone calls have failed because we've got the wrong information? How many emails are bouncing because the email's misspelled in PowerSchool, or whatever any of those discrepancies could exist in PowerSchool are. So this is just a short 2-minute, 2.5-minute video.
Thanks for visiting ParentSquare. Our goal is to help you streamline your communication and parent engagement efforts across your schools. ParentSquare unifies communication for all stakeholders and is 100% parent-centric. That means that everyone is using the same platform, including teachers, principals, staff, admin, even the superintendent. Here, we're logged in as a principal at Lincoln Elementary School. As an admin in ParentSquare, I know exactly what's going on at my school and have full access and insight into all school-to-home communication. I can also send out messages to the entire school, or I can send to specific grade levels, classrooms, or groups. We integrate and sync on a nightly basis with your student information system to ensure accurate reach at all times and minimal effort for all users to get started. There are 3 main ways to communicate in ParentSquare: alerts and notifications, posts, and private chats. Let's start by sending out an emergency alert from the app. Traditional one-way alerts and emergency notifications deliver as phone calls, emails, text, or app notifications. You can also send alerts from the web portal. The second way to communicate in ParentSquare is via a post. Sending posts are for day-to-day communication, used by teachers for their classroom communication and administrators for school, or district-wide communication. A teacher has access to send messages to their classroom, grade level, and select groups only, and roles can be restricted even further. Posts include plenty of different features such as photos and files, links, and item requests. If you're sharing an event, you can quickly add it to your event calendar, which syncs with your existing calendars. You can also request RSVPs, ask for a few volunteers, or even set up online payments. You can also send forms electronically through ParentSquare. Paper permission slips often end up lost at the bottom of students' backpacks. Ensure your important forms are delivered directly to parents by adding a digital form with optional electronic signature to your post. You can also send out newsletters with our newsletter template option. We build everything in-house, so the look and feel will remain the same, whether you use one or all of our add-ons. A post will reach parents via email, text, or app notification, depending on their preference. The third main way to communicate in ParentSquare is via private chats, one-to-one or one-to-many. Parents can also initiate these private chats if they want to reach their child's teacher, and all communication is done via the private portal or app. Now that everyone at your school or district is using the same communication platform, we can gather statistics for you and help measure not only reach and delivery, but also parent engagement and usage. Also, admins can assign different roles with restricted access, so you know with confidence that your staff are communicating with the right group, class, and grade level at all times. A district account will have super user access available to communicate district-wide alerts and announcements, as well as insight and access to all site communication, including private chats. As you can see, there's no need to go outside of ParentSquare for any of your communication and parent engagement needs. All features are available at Lincoln Elementary, but you can start with as few or as many of our features as you'd like, since we offer 3 different packages. I hope you enjoyed learning more about ParentSquare. I look forward to discussing how we can help engage your school community.
So that highlighted a few of the features that are available throughout ParentSquare. Forms and permission slips. Forms is something that I had used previously in my role when I was with Cohost City Schools. We had launched that 3-4 years ago. Right in the middle of COVID is when we launched ParentSquare, because of COVID, before everybody knew like what was going on with it. We didn't want that physical contact, papers going home and coming back or whatever, not knowing what was going on. So we had launched ParentSquare mainly for that district communication piece, but again, so that everything could stay digital and not have to have that two-way physical contact during the pandemic. We did a technology survey using the forms, in terms of, trying to get an idea when we were going one-to-one, how many kids had Chromebooks or needed Chromebooks, or if they had internet access at home. So all of that was gathered and compiled using ParentSquare. During COVID, it's not a form or a permission slip that we can create, but ParentSquare had done this during COVID to create the health attestations that we used to have to fill out before coming to school, saying that, do you have a fever, or do you have a headache, or, the sniffles or whatever. So they had actually built a module into ParentSquare so that staff and families could submit those health attestations before coming into school. So there's a lot of functionality there. Secure documents, report cards was something that we had sent out electronically using ParentSquare connection from the student information system. So again, there's so much that we can tap into, again, to kind of consolidate all that communication and, again, foster parent engagement. One of the things that I heard actually from the high school attendance secretary is that regarding attendance notification, she's getting information or emails or phone calls from parents that they've never heard from before. So it tells you kind of that, the platform, it's easier to use. It's something that people are used to because it looks like social media. It looks like Facebook or Twitter or any of those other platforms that we're all comfortable using. Up on this image right here, that center image, that's what the feed looks like. So if you're familiar with Facebook, that's what your Facebook feed looks like. On the left-hand side, that's the navigation pane that a teacher or administrator at the building level would see on how to send out posts, where they would get their messages, where they could look at photos and files that have been sent out through posts. The right-hand side there is the calendar that you'll see again connected to our district's Google Calendar for each of the buildings as well as the district. So when we talk about social media, we talk about all the good, but there's also bad that goes along with social media. That's something that isn't an issue with ParentSquare. When you send out a post or a communication, yes, like Facebook or any of the other platforms out there, you can appreciate a post. You can't dislike it. You can appreciate it and let the principals know that, hey, we appreciate the information that's being sent out. Parents cannot comment on these posts unless you turn it on. But even if you turn it on and you want some sort of feedback from the community, from the parents, if a parent adds a comment or their 2 cents on whatever that post was, the only person that sees that comment is the person that posted the message. So the other parents won't see it, other admins, teachers, faculty, they won't see any of those comments. The only person that'll see it is Mr. Bednarik at the high school or Mr. Genetti at Lincoln. And that's optional. By default, when somebody sends out a post, it's turned off by default. So you don't see comments, or comments won't be coming in unless you want some feedback and want to turn it on. So again, it's kind of like a closed ecosystem that's not open to the world, that's not open to the public, and it won't turn into that free-for-all that sometimes happens in Facebook. Next slide. So we talked about the reporting on the statistics on messages and posts that go out. We have that ability to kind of drill down into how many people got the message, how many phone calls went out, how many emails went out, who looked at it, how many people looked at it, what didn't go through, that sort of a thing. The picture in the background, that's our attendance list or attendance notices. This one happens to be from the high school. Right down to the period, it'll tell you what they've missed, if they were absent or late. And if you look on the right-hand side of that background picture, there's a little icon. Those icons are all parents that have responded from the ParentSquare app or the website indicating that, hey, my child was absent today because they were sick or had a doctor's appointment. So this is actually live data from today that went out. Calls went out and parents responded indicating that, this is why they were out. Please excuse them or whatever the case is. So again, a lot of engagement going on. Where to access it? So ParentSquare, actually to log in and get to it, will be right on our district website. Right on the main page on the right-hand side, you'll see the connect options for Facebook and whatever the other social media options are. ParentSquare is right in that area. The direct link to get to ParentSquare is also right up there. Parents and teachers won't necessarily have to put that in. They can just go to parentsquare.com and log in with their accounts. We've also, or Julia has actually taken the initiative to go ahead and create a ParentSquare website that's on our district resources page. So that has a whole list of FAQs, frequently asked questions. How do I do this? Who do I contact to fix my parent contact information in PowerSchool? All of that is on a page that she took quite a bit of time in creating to make that transition and kind of learn about ParentSquare a little easier. The other pieces in terms of reaching out to the ParentSquare team is the parentsquare@sgcsd.email, and then filling out a Google form, which is the very top of our website. So they fill out that Google form, it comes to us, and we address the contact issues or whatever might exist in PowerSchool. For staff, as with any other instructional tool or technology tool that they would use, they would submit an IT ticket to us, and we would address those issues accordingly. I think that is it in a nutshell. Any questions? Pam?
With Blackboard, the community members used to be able to get phone calls when school wasn't, like say school was closed.
Yep.
Or snow day or something like that.
Yep.
How can community members get any notifications from you? I know I called because I couldn't.
Yep.
And they made me a member of the middle school team.
Yep.
But I'm not getting any notifications of anything that's happening at the high school or at my elementary school.
So there are community groups. And that's something we're working on creating. The community group is something that, again, would address exactly that need. What that does is, what we do once it's created is we put up a link on the ParentSquare page or on the district website somewhere that anybody that wants to stay in the know on district happenings, again, not specific to students that they might have because they might not have any students, but anything community related, closures or, some sort of
Lockdowns.
Yep, that type of stuff. They would sign up for those community groups, and then when those posts go out, including those community groups, that's when you would get those notifications.
Okay, so that's not ready yet.
It'll probably be ready in the next couple of days.
Okay. And do you ordinarily get phone calls like we did with Blackboard, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I don't have a cell phone. I don't have text. I can't receive text.
Yep. You can still get phone calls, even so. If you don't get text, you'll still get the voice calls.
I'm sure I'm not the only person who is old-fashioned who does not have, like the cell phone.
Yep.
Who are interested in what's going on in the school.
Yep, absolutely. Phone calls are still part of it.
Okay. Thank you.
I have to say, it was kind of nice day too, because I went to my child sick with old school phones. They're like, oh, wait a minute, you'll get a square, and I was like, oh, really? And then I was able to send my absent note that way.
Yep.
I mean, as a parent, that makes my life so much easier. I'm not scrambling to find. We used to have the
phone
elementary
number or
school,
who to call.
the little blue sheet to fill out. My kid was absent, so it's really nice. And then I also got my notification today. It popped up and said, remember to charge your Chromebooks because tomorrow middle school will be testing for mathematics.
Yeah.
So I thought that those little touches are kind of nice to remind me as a parent to get those and not rely on my middle school student who's not going to tell me.
I think it's great because you have the power of choice. When you're setting up your accounts, you could set it up to get things immediately when people send out messages, or by digest, which means you will get any message that was sent at 6 p.m. But just also to keep in mind that when we do have emergency messages, all of that's bypassed and it goes out immediately. And the website step-by-step guide is on the district services page. You can get to it through there.
Has there been, I am one of the individuals who I'm embarrassed to admit I'm not necessarily tech savvy. So if you saw me on my cell phone today, I was opening up the ParentSquare app because I wanted to see, coordinate it. But I admit there's things that I'm having trouble with because I'm more of a visual, this is how you do this, this
Yep.
is how you do that. And so I'm wondering, for example, one of the secretaries of the high school said, oh, you can leave me a message, and I couldn't find where to leave her a message on the ParentSquare to do that.
Yep.
I'm sure it may not be a lot, but there may be other individuals
Yep.
who have difficulties like me. Has there ever been thought of having like a class per se for those who are technically challenged like myself?
You can do, absolutely.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And there are videos, and if you do check out the page on the district services, the ParentSquare page, it does give you step-by-step guides, and it kind of just walks you through and what you'll see at the time.
On how to set up your notifications, how to log in and set up your communication preferences. You know, if you don't want to get everything, you know, as it comes out, and you'd rather have that digest, you know, Mr. Bednarik sends out 10 messages throughout the day, you'll get all those 10 based on your settings at 6 p.m. But the other thing, obviously, to be mindful of, if you choose to set things to digest, is not everything is necessarily an emergency, but they might want to get that point across a little sooner. So if you're set to digest, something that might be pertinent throughout the day, you won't get until 6 p.m. that day. And you're like, how come I didn't get that when it was sent out? Because your notification preferences said, only send it to me at 6 p.m.
You can also check the app.
Yes. Historical purposes or whatever, you know, reference, you can go back in and look at those messages. Even if you didn't get the notification, you can still go into the app and see that at 3 o'clock, Mr. Bednarik, you know, sent that post or message out. But I'm absolutely open to doing any sort of like a community event or training on how to get into ParentSquare, how to use whatever feature, you know, if it's attendance to anything else. Absolutely.
Does the district pay you per pupil, or is there, like, you said there were 3 different packages?
Yeah, so it is based on the student enrollment. And I think the package that we have includes everything that we're getting today in terms of like the phone calls. So the base package includes all that stuff anyway. The added features that we get is secure document delivery. So if we wanted to send out, you know, progress reports or report cards or whatever through ParentSquare, we could do that. Or any other type of documentation that has student information on it, student IDs, names, emails, whatever. Chromebook documentation in terms of what device your child has, whatever. All that can be sent securely. But that was an add-on module that we actually opted into. But yes, it is based on the student FT or student enrollment.
So say that we opt, when you say the option to have the secure documents, that's something that we would decide as a district to do?
It was part of the package that we signed up for. So it's something that we had already subscribed to.
So would that eliminate, if you had parents who wanted the old paper copy in the mail, would you just say, we're just not doing that anymore?
Nope, that doesn't necessarily, that's more of like a manual process. I mean, it doesn't, so if we send out the secure documents, it's not saying that you're not getting that paper copy. It's just, that would be a district or building decision in terms of whether they're going to continue to send that paper copy. I think what a lot of the buildings have said as we've kind of gone through the process is this will help us eliminate that and not have so much paper going home. But it's not necessarily a mandate that, like, because you're opting into this digital format now, you're not getting the paper or hard copies.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
One question. So for attendance, is that real time?
So it pulls the attendance at a certain time in the morning, and then the attendance calls, again, based on the building preference, will go out at, you know, like high school, what time do we go out? High school attendance notices go out at 9:30. The principals then get the report, or the designee for attendance gets the report probably about an hour after that, 10:30. But the calls are going out starting at 9:30, and from that point on, the parents can respond and say, hey, my child was absent because of X, Y, Z. It's not real time, so that meaning if the attendance goes out at 9:30 and there's still obviously classes going on, you're not getting that class that happened at 1 o'clock until the next iteration at the secondary level, which means that there's a call that goes out at 9:30 and then a call that goes out at 3 or 3:30, I believe. So you'll get, you know, from 7 a.m. to whatever time, 9 o'clock or whatever.
Another block?
At another block, yeah.
So what about periods, like in high school? And-
Yep, all
and
that's,
then-
all periods are included. So you won't necessarily get fifth, sixth period until 3 o'clock or 3:30.
Okay.
Yep, so you got 2 calls and I think that frequency can probably be changed, and you can send it out maybe 3 times a day. But again, we don't necessarily want to inundate everybody. If that's something that the community at large feels, hey, we'd rather get those notifications 3 times a day, then we can certainly look into that.
So what about emergency notifications? How do they go out? Is it normal or?
That's normal, and that will override any preferences that you have. You know, if you want to get them instantly, well, no, that actually doesn't apply to emergency communications. Emergency communications override any settings that are in the system already. So if there's something that we're sending out that needs to go immediately, it's going to get out there.
So is that, when it comes to me or any of us, is that like, do our phones like go off like crazy, or are we like, you know, like
Like
emergency alert
usual.
system?
I mean, you'll get your app notification, you'll get a text message, you'll get, if you're opting into all of those methods, you'll get each one of those. The emergency communications, it's sent out instantly through all mediums. So that way, again, we would only use that in a true emergency situation.
Okay.
Because again, we don't want to inundate people with, you know, we don't want to send that type of communication for your typical run-of-the-mill day-to-day communications.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So ParentSquare send me things that your child is late or your child is missing from 3rd period social studies. And then a few minutes later I'll get they're late with pass. So and then when the square comes through, it'll say your child is missing in 2, 3, 4. Do those late with passes cover that, or do I need to send it a message back that says they were late with pass from ParentSquare?
So I guess that depends on how attendance is handled.
Especially the late day call, it's all going to be resolved. And what you're going to be getting through ParentSquare is what is now accurate in PowerSchool, in ParentSquare. So the ParentSquare message is riding on top of PowerSchool, so it's just reading what's there.
All right.
So if that lady with a pass got corrected later in the day,
Right.
then that's the report you're going to get on the last call of the day.
Right.
All right, so I don't have to
Right.
respond.
So the attendance reports in ParentSquare are pulling from whatever is whatever's happening in PowerSchool at that moment in time. And then, you know, from the 9:30 call to 3 o'clock, when those things resolve, then obviously that you wouldn't get another call saying that, you know, your child was absent at 3rd period or whatever because they had a pass or whatever the case was.
Okay. I like getting the thing your kids late to class.
Yeah.
Does a parent have to be part of ParentSquare? What if a parent doesn't want to be notified that their kids aren't in school, or a parent doesn't want to get?
That's something, so they would communicate, or they would contact the school and let us know that they don't want to receive those notices, and we would have to remove them from the system, if that's
Okay.
truly what they wanted. Yep.
And PowerSchool's not going away, right? This is sticking.
Nope.
kind of
This is
hand
just,
in hand.
so think of it as just a layer on top of PowerSchool. PowerSchool is where all the data comes from. ParentSquare just takes that and disseminates it out. Any other questions?
Anyone else? No? Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we will turn it over to Superintendent Schwartz.
So I just wanted to give you a brief update on attendance year to year, year to year. Right now, we're seeing a decline of 66 students from this time last year till now. Again, I'm not shocked or surprised by that, and it will fluctuate throughout the year. You know, I'm looking at attendance monthly, but as we start the school year, that's where we are. We've seen our numbers of homeschooled students increase again, so we have just about 90 students who are homeschooled right now. Our BOCES number has stayed pretty consistent, and our private school number has stayed pretty consistent. So some coming and going, and again, that is not at all odd for the start of the year, but we are seeing a bit of a decline. I also want to remind folks that the Athletic Hall of Fame induction ceremony is October 6th from 11 to 1. It's going to be at Union College. The cost is $30. I think it's brunch. we will get that information out to you. But if you wish to go, please let me know and I'll make sure you're signed up.
October 7th.
Thank you, October 7th. 6th is the football game and the, thank you, Peter. And then I also want to jump right on number 6 on your agenda. You've got a copy of the resolutions, proposed resolutions from NISBA, in either in hard copy, if that's the way you preferred them, or they're in our portal. Your job is to go through those resolutions and determine how you feel about each of them. And Jill has provided a spreadsheet. You weigh in on the spreadsheet. Then next week, you will have a discussion about anywhere we couldn't reach consensus. And by consensus, I mean if 5 of you say I support this and 2 of you say I don't, then we support it as a board, just like a regular board vote. So we will only come to have a discussion about items that you are truly in different camps about, if you will. So I would ask you to get your information, to turn that around, get it back to Jill by the end of the week. She's a miracle worker, but it would be nice if she had it before Monday morning so she can do the tallies and have them for us that night. Okay? And then the last thing I want to talk to you about.
Pam's got a question.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I got phlegm in my throat. I'd just like to make a couple comments about doing the resolutions.
yeah, of course.
First of all, this is what NISBA is going to be setting as their priorities for lobbying. You can read something and say, gee, that sounds really good, I'm in favor of that. But the question is, do you want NISBA spending their time trying to change that or trying to bring that about? And in a lot of cases, that's why they voted no, that they don't want these resolutions accepted, is because it's either something that isn't in NISBA's realm, or something that may only apply to 1 or 2 schools, or something that is just not going to be able to be done. You know, we know that there's certain things that the legislators are not going to change, regardless of how much NISBA may stand there and, you know, decide to change it. But so think about that when you're voting yes or no. Is this a priority that you want NISBA to spend their time and their energy on trying to get resolved? Is this something that's going to affect all of the districts? This is something that is really of major importance that we should do? Or in some cases, it's just one particular district or a couple districts have a problem with something, and so they want the law changed. And so they want to solve their problems or have NISBA solve their problems. And we just have to keep that all in mind when we're putting it. Is this what we want NISBA to be known for lobbying for these particular things?
Could somebody explain a little bit about where these proposals came from in the first place?
Any school district can put in a proposal. So, for example, Guilderland, near and dear to my heart, is looking for pre-K, some changes to pre-K regulations. But school districts and sometimes NISBA themselves will come up with things. And they have a agenda, yearly agenda. I'm looking to Pam to help me with the word, of things they are interested in, but any school district can submit.
And we ran into some confusion last year with some of the language. I think we need to clarify. First, sometimes you have to be careful because sometimes they want not to do something. And then, because I think we had some problems with that last year, and also there was a question about, are we voting yes that we agree with their recommendation, or are we saying yes that we think it? Because sometimes it'll say, for example, it'll say our recommendation is not to go forward. So if you say yes, you're saying yes to them saying no. But I think we really got our wires crossed last year.
Yeah, the first 32, I believe, are ones that they recommend that we pass. So if you say yes, that means you agree with those. If the ones from 33 through 56, if you vote no, you agree with them that it should not be passed. So the first 32 would be yes, you agree with it, and the rest of them would be no, you do not agree with it.
So,
You do not agree
Said-
with what the resolution is. Basically, you're agreeing with what the committee said, but you're not agreeing with what the resolution was.
Yes, so if the resolution reads, we agree that section 75 should not be changed to reflect the grievance 3020A. That's been a hot topic. If you say, yes, I agree to that statement, it should not be changed.
Yeah, like as you said, Emily, you gotta watch the language.
right, because I think we
You're either
were,
agreeing with the resolution or you're not agreeing with the resolution.
so it has nothing to do with what their recommendation is. For example, here's a resolution, and it says their recommendation is to oppose it. So if I'm just voting on the resolution, I'm not saying, yes, I agree that we should oppose it. I'm just
Right,
saying,
you're saying, I look at this resolution, I read the resolution, and I oppose it. Or I'm against it, or I am for it. All the other stuff they say down below is just an explanation of what's going on.
So we're agreeing with them
You're
that
agreeing-
that they disagree with that resolution. They're not going to push that resolution. Right. So the first 32 are, it's either yes, we agree, or no, we don't agree. And then the rest of them are the ones that NISBA has already said we're not going to push. So we are agreeing that yes, we agree with them, or no, we don't agree
okay,
with that.
but I don't think that's what Pam just
But
said.
I
that's
wanna
not
make
what I
sure.
said.
Yeah,
I
that's,
don't
and
know.
this is, I think that, yeah.
That was the
Okay.
confusion that we had all run into
It's
as
just,
last year.
yeah, it's
Correct.
just what the resolution says.
Right, they're voting.
Do you
no.
agree with the resolution or do you not agree with the resolution? The first 32 NISBA agreed with. The rest of them, they don't agree with. So they're saying no to the rest of those.
But maybe the easier way to think of it is read the resolution and either, yes, you agree with the resolution, or no, you don't.
Right, that's what it basically comes down to.
Right.
Yeah. And just for people who aren't aware, these only last, I'm trying to remember, it's 3 years or 5 years that these resolutions stay for NISBA if we approve them. And they sunset at that point. So that's what those first 14 are, that says, and it's mothers that say sunsetting. That means they've come to the end of their period that they've been approved for. Do we want to extend that period and continue to work for those things?
And the first, you said the first 30 or
It's
so
32,
are,
I think it is.
but that's not, so some of these, even in the beginning, they say yes, and some of them, they say no position at all.
Oh, that's a different committee. That's the DEI committee that has, it's a separate committee that looked at it. And they did not take a position. The DEI did not take a position on a lot of these things.
When you say sunsetting, does that reset the clock for how long?
Yes,
2 years
yeah,
again? or whatever it
exactly.
is?
That's
Okay.
much better worded.
Emily, we will be happy to help you once you get working through them.
It wasn't so much that I needed to, well, now I think maybe I do need help. It's that I know that last year we were, I think, divided, right, that we had two totally different understandings. And so I think when we did the numbers, they were, not everybody was doing it the same way.
Right, and that was on the second half of the ones that NISBA said they are not going to prioritize. I think the beginning, if I remember right, the beginning resolutions, we were all on, it was either we agreed or we disagreed. But then it went to the language, the way it was said for the last 30 or whatever it was, is that they're not going to prioritize those. And I think some of us took it as, yes, I agree, and no, I don't agree. So I think we filled it the same way out last year as you're saying right now. Right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think if you stick
That was
with
a lot of
what
who's on first.
Susan said when she put it together, read the resolution. If you're for it, it's a yes. read the resolution. If you are not for that resolution being passed, say no. Don't worry about whether,
Who else is supporting
whoever
it?
said what anything else.
Susan, is it possible for me to pick up a hard copy tomorrow?
Oh, absolutely. Or I have one I can give you tonight.
Okay.
I'd be happy to. And then the last thing, I see that the BOCES annual report is also here for you, but the last thing that I had at your places tonight is our board policy on student attendance, resources at the New York State Education Department about student attendance, and then the information that Mr. Benetti handed out at his open house. And if folks want to discuss that, we should do that under business. And I'm done, Mr. Talbot, for now.
All right, thank you. Just make a note.
I'm sorry, Susan, can I ask one other question?
Sure.
When are we going to select the person that is going to?
Next week.
On Monday.
That's close.
Because
to-
next week's board, we have a board meeting on October 2nd because of the holiday. The Indigenous Peoples Monday is the following Monday, so we meet early on October 2nd.
Okay, so we'll make that decision next week.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. If I can get a motion for item number 7 for the request to establish a sign language club.
I will motion to approve the request to establish a sign language club.
Thank you. And a
I'll
second?
second.
Thank you, Pam.
I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, that's an awesome one. Any discussions on this one? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Or abstain? So moved. Motion for resolution number 8 to accept a gift and donation from the Friends of Music.
I make a motion that we accept the gift and donation from Friends of Music for a set of Yamaha chimes as submitted.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. Thank you. Motion for resolution number 9 to appoint an interim admin for the district.
I'll move that we appoint Jill Bush as an interim administrator for the district and welcome her back into the fold.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussions on that?
I was just, Susan, could you just explain a little bit about her background?
Sure.
Thank you.
Jill started her teaching career here at Scotia in the middle school, which was on the junior high, working for Ann Sturman. She taught math here for 10 years. Pam thinks she then became principal.
Assistant principal.
Assistant principal here. Our paths crossed when she joined us at Shen. She was principal of Gowanna Middle School, a school of 100 students. And then she moved into the assistant superintendent for instruction position that I had vacated. And then she moved from there into HR. And that's where she retired from, HR at Shen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. Motion for resolution 10, school bus stop arm enforcement program.
I'll do a motion for the school bus stop arm enforcement program.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Emily. Discussion on this one?
I had a question though. So, the Village of Scotia approved it on their side. We talked about Glenville 2 boards back, we approved
And
it.
they've approved it.
So the funds that are collected from the fines, where are they going?
They're going back to the village and back to the town.
So they're collecting the money and they,
Yes.
okay.
Once we upload the data to them, we're out of it.
Okay. So we're not getting any money for like camera install or anything?
No, I think
The
it
way
will
you
come
think.
back to us in other ways, but
Okay.
yes.
Is this something that a lot of other schools are doing?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
All the
I
cities
figured,
already
yeah.
started, and yes,
Good idea.
it's a huge problem with people passing stop school buses. In fact, one of our employees stopped 3 stop school buses just very recently. So yeah, this is hugely problematic.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. Motion for item number 11.
I move to approve the agreement by and between the Scotia-Glenville Central School District and the Scotia-Glenville Administrators Association, the Scotia-Glenville Teachers Association, Scotia-Glenville Teachers Association Teaching Assistance Unit, the Scotia-Glenville Secretarial Unit, the Scotia-Glenville Teachers Association Aides and Monitors Unit, the Scotia-Glenville School Employees Local 766, and all management and confidential employees, and I wish her well.
Absolutely, thank you. A second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussions on this one? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. Thank you. Motion for communications.
I'll move communications A through C, staffing 1 through 24, and the placement of students with disabilities as submitted.
I'll second.
Kim, thank you. Any discussions on those? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. Item number 15, other business.
So folks, we've provided you with the district safety plan. As you know, we do not provide you with individual building level plans on the recommendation of law enforcement. This year's plan includes the plan for teaching if we are in the middle of an emergency or catastrophe that Mr. Arquette developed. I thank him for that. But that's the new piece of the district plan, talks about what remote instruction would look like, very much like what we were doing during COVID if we had to do it. So next week, there will be a public hearing on the district plan at 6:30, and then I will ask you to adopt it that evening. In your Board of Education goals, hopefully now reflect the wording that we agreed to, no acronyms, and will be posted on the website.
Beautiful, thank you. Any other business?
I had a couple of things I'd like to bring up. First, quicker note, there again was not an announcement on Instagram or Facebook about the board meeting tonight. I would ask that we do post that on them.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And the other piece is, and I appreciate you providing the attendance policy. The reason this had come up is I had received from a parent a letter that had gone out from Lincoln Elementary regarding attendance issues. And I had some questions about this letter that I'm hoping that we can get some answers. When I read this, and I read the attendance what's in the policy. I admittedly have not, obviously I can't click on the links, but when I read this letter to me reads like a policy. And I know we, in August, had public hearing and voted on codes of conduct, which included additional issues regarding tardiness, cell phones, and what would happen at each stage of the game with respect to those, and I appreciated those. And this, to me, reads similarly. This letter, it's entitled 2023-2024 Lincoln Elementary Attendance Plan. So I had some questions with respect to, is this all of this language in something that we already have in place? Because the only thing I saw was the 3 or more consecutive days needing a medical note. The other pieces I have not seen.
It's in our ESSA plan, so it's part of our required Every Student Succeeds Act planning.
Okay.
Because John's school was targeted for excessive attendance and had to come up with a plan. So this plan has actually been our plan since 2021? 2000, and this is the same thing we have done. School attendance is a problem nationwide, post-COVID. I mean, for some schools it was a problem prior to COVID, but it's been interesting. We've been talking about this in my graduate course. But there are, as John's letter points out on the back, many adverse effects attended with that come from inconsistent attendance at school. And those have been borne out also on the national level. So this isn't really new per se, and it is part of our state required plan, which is not necessarily the same for every building because John's building was the one that was targeted under ESSA. However, I will tell you the high school is working very diligently on attendance, as is the middle school and the elementaries as they need it.
Is this ESSA plan available to the public to be able to view?
Yes, I think it's right on our website.
Okay.
It should be linked right there, but if you can't find it, let me know. But yes, the Every Student Succeeds Act.
Literally, I changed the date from the presentation that I did back in 2019.
Okay, I just had some parents ask me about it, since I'm not a part of Lincoln, I didn't know one way or the other, so I appreciate it, thank you.
And obviously with COVID, our plan had to get put on the back burner.
Understood.
So, yeah.
Do you reach out to parents, give some insight of what's going on, why?
Mr. Giannetti spoke about this at his open house, so I would say his parents are very much aware. But
So we made it as we did back in 2019, 2020 at our presentation night, part of our goals, where we asked parents to understand why we're sending letters home, why communication, which I think you heard a lot about tonight, now there's two-way communication coming back, why we are trying to ask whether or not your student is sick, are there other things going on? Because in a lot of the literature that I send out to the parents, sometimes student absent isn't due to a medical condition, but maybe because of bullying or something else that's going on in school.
Yeah.
Which I coincided in my presentation with bullying as well, and how they can advocate for their child and inform us if there's bullying going on. So again, just so we are exploring all avenues of why students aren't there, and also getting our ISD involved, which is where our teachers and our social worker and everyone who works with the student involved to say, okay, what kind of plan can we do? For example, one of my students that started out this year coming in late every day, realizing her older brother from the middle school can walk her there, I can let her in the door before 8:25. We can make those individual without communication. We don't know.
And they're not to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so tell me if I'm wrong. These initial letters, they're not meant to, it's based on what you've said, it sounds like they're not meant to be punitive, it's more of a.
Correct.
Okay.
And a lot of those procedures in place, part of that has to come in, as a parent representative on working with us, but it's also to kind of give some feedback. We know, myself included, my daughter was there, she was in the hospital with pneumonia, right, so we know that. Even in my presentation, I said, please understand, we have, because we're tracking 234 students, that we kind of have an automated system. So I said, please don't take offense if you think we knew or we told somebody, but the letter is still going home. The pop will figure it out. It's not an issue. The only actual thing there is a piece to it. It's really came out of our own policy that says, all suspected cases of educational neglect have to be reported to CPS. That was the only thing that I added to this year's letter that really came from
The policy, right.
Unfortunately, I looked at it as all for these things. So I thought it was only fair to do that.
Thank you.
Any other business?
One more thing, maybe. Oh, so I guess the middle school had a cyberbullying presentation today. So I thought it was great. Do we think about maybe going down one more grade and maybe presenting it there if it's not yet?
I can certainly talk to Bob.
Okay. Thanks. That's it.
No other business at this time. We will open up the second hearing and privilege of the floor. If anyone would like to address the board, please state your name, address, and adhere to the board's 5-minute policy. Okay, if not, I will close the second hearing and privilege of the floor. Thank everyone for coming and ask for a motion to adjourn.
Oh, okay, good.
Kim, a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? Thank you, everyone.